Hello, everybody. Well, this is the week. This is the week. We're in election eve now, and by this time tomorrow, we're not going to know anything that we don't know today. It's going to be 2 days until there's some clarity. I suspect that tomorrow's going to be kind of a holding pattern because the monster events are Wednesday and Thursday. Wednesday should, and I underline should, provide us some result, certainly on Senate and House elections and hopefully presidential, but you never know. And Thursday is the Fed. Yeah, it's going to be wild. So this is enjoy the calm is what I'm saying. I wrote a long piece this weekend. Some of you might have read. If you're interested in it, it's over at slopeofhope.com called, what did I call it? Pre-election reflections. And there's no great reveal in the whole thing. I just sort of ponder kind of where we're at and what I think is forthcoming. And I am pretty bearishly positioned, although that might be a little loony. But, it's sort of like, should one make decisions when they're drunk? It's like, well, no. I think that's kind of the attitude we should have about the post-election, because when the results come in and things are going all over the place, probably not a great time to make decisions, either exiting or entering. Probably a good time to be coldly logical and have, sensible stops in place, but don't jump in with both feet about anything. Yeah, it's going to be, it could be crazier. Maybe we'll be surprised. Maybe it'll be quite tepid. But I distinctly remember some real doozies post-election. One in particular, I'll never forget, was in 2016. I was at the Costco buying some stuff with the wife. The election went a surprising way, and the futures markets went absolutely crazy. And they went like limit down, and by the morning they were up huge. So absolutely mayhem. So it'll be an exciting week. There's no doubt about that. I've got a deliberately short list of symbols today. Like I say, been in a holding pattern, but definitely some things to talk about. So let's get started with the spider. Now, as I said last week, the big event last week was the failure of the trend line. And that has been just terrific because, I wouldn't shut up about this medium-term trend line right here. We've got our first little signal back on the 29th that something was amiss. And the next day, it cracked it a little more clearly. And then by old Halloween there, it was just jumped right down. And so for the past 3 trading days, we've been down here, and we're pretty near the lows of that area. In other words, we've sort of undone a few weeks of gains here. You can see this kind of upside down U going on. And check this out, our old midline here. This is a much more substantial level of support. This midline is the midline of the channel. It goes back to March of 2009. And just as we got a little bit of damage here, which was quite telling, same deal happening today. We're probably not going to close below it, but it's a little bit of a signal that we're fracturing that support. Over on the diamonds, these peaked back on the 18th, and we've got a pretty cute little topping pattern going on here, which is close to completion. We got lower at one point today than we had been since way back on September 18. As I say, kind of wait and see right now, because there's really going to be obviously no political results today, obviously, in turn of tomorrow. It won't be until Wednesday morning. And of course, futures trading that will start to kick in. EWZ Brazil had a terrific fall on Friday. It undid that today and then some. We actually get back into where we were Thursday. However, one day does not a trend break. This massive head and shoulders pattern here, all in pink, is still intact. And as we zoom in, we have backed away from some of the earlier strength. We're up 2.53%. This line will have to do. There's no really obvious place that this resistance line belongs, but certainly overhead supply begins to mass quite heavily along here. So I've simply anchored it to Thursday's high, like so. So still sticking with the Brazil put. China apparently is going to be, they've sort of hinted at it for weeks, but they're going to be announcing their multi-trillion-dollar equity stimulus package in another desperate bid to goose prices. It'll be interesting to see how that goes, but obviously things are just been stalled out for weeks at this point. The Chinese stock market doesn't really seem to care that much. Some big news that came in on Friday evening was some shakeup in the Dow 30, the Dow 30 Industrials. One item I've touted here for a long time as a bullish idea, which is boring old paint, Sherwin-Williams. I was very surprised to see Sherwin-Williams Paint Company is entering the hallowed halls of the Dow 30, but there we have it. And it's enjoying the news, although It opened rather near its high today. It's been fading away from that, but it's still a good day. It's up almost $15, over 4%. Hasn't got a lifetime high on that, but a good day there. The other big news is, of course, NVIDIA also rolling into the Dow 30. And I would note that in spite of this really good news, I mean, there's no higher honor for a stock than to be in the Dow 30. That's as exclusive as it gets. It is not at lifetime highs. And today's gain, while green, it's 1.5%, 1 2/3%. It's like kind of a shoulder shrug. Anyway, so I think that becomes official before this week is out, but NVIDIA doesn't seem to care that terribly much about it because it's a very, very, very expensive stock to begin with. Of course, one goes in, another goes out. What got the boot is Intel, which is kind of embarrassing. But Intel, they peaked years ago, 2.5 years ago, and they've had a really rough time since then because they've quite clearly completely dropped the ball on AI, and it's been a dreadful 2024. And so this news, they're down about 3% on INTC. And in fact, as you look around tech stocks, the excitement's kind of gone for the moment. Maybe it's just tension about the election, but there's just not much happening. I mean, here's Microsoft. They're down today at $2 2/3, right like so. Really the same price they were at near the start of the year. Really just very, very little positive activity there. We slid hard here and then a big gap down after earnings. Same can be said for Alphabet. In this case, earnings knocked the ball out of the park, as you can see with this explosive move higher. Got up to 182 and it fell all day and then fell some more and fell some more and fell some more. The price level we're at now is the same as we were at before the earnings were even out. So before all this great news was announced, it's fact now, but that fact hasn't moved the price. It did not move the dial except briefly. So yeah, it's pushing on a string, as the old saying goes. As expensive as these stocks are, you can throw all the good news you like at it. The market is just shrugging its shoulders at this news. And with all that, the cubes are down a little bit. And as with the spider, the trendline failure, I think, is a key. And going back to my don't make decisions while drunk Wednesday thing, the kind of stop I'm talking about is this rather liberal, no pun intended for politics, but this stop gap right here, way up there, that level, I think would be hey, something's up on the bullish side of things. I think any shorts are going to be comfortable so long as that gap holds. This is reflected, the weakness in tech is reflected also with the semiconductors. In this case, the price gap likewise is an important stop, 249.45, and we've just been sitting here for 3 days doing a whole lot of nothing. Now, my obsession with silver continues, and I confessed it to my slope readers, and I'll confess it here that I couldn't help myself. I have re-entered the long trade about 40% of my intended position. So it's not like I've gone whole hog, and I could get blown right out at a loss, absolutely. But it's too tempting. It just makes too much sense at these levels. And I would rather lose money getting stopped out than I would watch this thing fly higher as I expect it to and have none of it. That would be a worse feeling. So I'm going to trade one emotion for the other. So I'm long again, PSLV, or SLV to be precise. And the gaps here on PSLV is 10.82 as before. And on SLV, the price gap is 29.20. So my stop is just below that. I've been trying to think about, what markets would move the most after the election, because, some stocks like, I don't know, Walmart, let's try to pick up Johnson & Johnson, something like that, probably doesn't care too much one way or the other how things go. Whereas something like DJT cares a tremendous amount which way things are going to go. This has been a crazy mover lately, as you can see. We went from a complete crash to a mega rally to a semi-crash. You gave it about half of it back. And we got down to this apex here, and it's rallying now. But we're at about $33 and change now. And I think we can safely say that by Wednesday, this is going to be up a lot or down a lot. So this is a pretty interesting bet on the market. Just to be clear, in case it's not obvious, I have no position in this. I just think it's really interesting to watch. But a lot of the fireworks, I think, will be concentrated in these. Another one to a lesser degree, but a much bigger stock, vastly bigger, is Tesla, which after their peak right here on the 28th, has been just slipping on a daily basis like so. So we've gone from 273 down to as low as 238 in a matter of days. Support is down here with this trio of Fibonacci's, and resistance is up here and has been for a very long time. But that'll also be a big mover. And I don't really know how late into the evening this trades. I know some stocks trade quite late. I'm not sure if this is one of them. We might have to wait till Wednesday morning to see which way the wind is blowing on that. Just while I'm mentioning Tesla, I assume, I haven't looked at the news, but Canoo, one of the electric vehicle manufacturers, down about 50% now, having fallen from about $550 down to 38 cents. I guess it's a goner, but yeah, this is yet another wipeout in the Tesla wannabe group. In contrast to this, Polestar, it hasn't done great, but it seems to be holding its own. It managed to find some support last week, and it's not a great looking chart, but it's fantastic compared to Canoo. Oil had a very strong day. USO up quite a lot after OPEC Plus decided not to raise production again. But I would still say energy stocks seem quite vulnerable. XOP, I think this dashed line here represents an important level of resistance on those. So just to wrap it up with a couple of cash indexes, the CompQ, medium-term trend line is broken. That's, I think, a big deal and worth respecting. And the Dow Utilities, which until a couple of weeks back was having an amazing 2024, didn't quite beat its former high and is falling down hard. And the cool part is that this trend line, which is one of the four lines constituting this diamond, look at where we found support. Magic, huh? Isn't that cool? So there is resistance. And then here, same line, different role, is representing support. So spiffy stuff.